Hello everybody, my name is Sage Sierra and I'm a political science student here at San Jose State University, and today I will be presenting my topic of water scarcity in San Jose, California. So this is for my human rights project. I am to choose an issue that is infringing on human rights, and I chose to focus on a local area because I think that local issues are the ones that we should be looking after first because it applies to us and the people around us. It applies to our whole community. So I chose water scarcity because I believe that it is often an overlooked issue that not enough people are aware of. I think that a lot of people assume that since we're in such a developed country, we're in modern times, and the Silicon Valley, of course, I think that people just often overlook it and don't realize that clean, safe drinking water is a lot more inaccessible than one might think. So first, let's talk about how we came to this issue. The first three root causes of this are a drought. Main issue is just climate change. So we had one of the worst droughts in California history from 2012 to 2017, and this significantly impacted our state as a whole, but also our city of San Jose in a very negative way. We rely heavily on the delta for our water sources, and that drought significantly lowered the water levels and just almost not drained it entirely, but it really did negatively impact the amount of water that we keep in the delta, and therefore impacted all the water that we could transport in. There wasn't much of it. Additionally, this drought did affect the snow caps that we collect our water from on local mountain ranges. We collect the snow that lands on the mountains and we purify that and then transport it to wherever it is needed. We had a lack of snow on the mountains, so that also really negatively impacts the amount of clean, safe, and drinkable water that we had. The second main cause of this issue is just excessive extraction of groundwater. In California, there aren't many regulatory policies that cover groundwater pumping in California. We're one of the more negligent states when it comes to this issue, and unfortunately this has left us in sort of a negative position as we are significantly depleting our underground water sources. Especially from private owned wells, there are no inspections of those whatsoever unless it's getting any sort of maintenance to it or just installed. There are no routine checkups on it, and there is no oversight over privately owned wells whatsoever, so we could be easily abusing those water sources. And additionally, as for the naturally appearing water ground wells where the water collects underneath, we've been draining it quicker than it can naturally replenish itself. So I believe that these are two main reasons that our water sources have significantly been depleted during recent years. The third root reason as to why our water sources are at stake right now is, of course, due to excessive water use. This does not just apply to the residents of San Jose, California. It's not just us. It is also big corporations. It's also agriculture, and it's also just infrastructure, how we need water to just run things and mechanics and stuff. So that's another root cause of water scarcity. Of course, this does infringe on human rights. According to the California Water Code, access to clean and safe drinking water is now a new human rights. It's recognized in California. It has not been recognized nationally or worldwide, of course, but it's recognized in our state, and that's all we need to fight for it in San Jose. So I think that's a major reason to bring attention to this issue and advocate for change. Additionally, it really negatively affects our world as well. Our natural life cannot survive without water. It infringes on habitats, it infringes on our ecosystems, and it's just no good for us, our natural worlds, plants, animals, none of it. And I do have some solutions. Luckily, I have 3 proposals that I think can improve the situation. The first is going to be implementing strict groundwater pumping regulations. I think this would solve a lot of problems. I think that it would help reduce the excessive water that we're pumping. Also, I forgot to mention that private wells, since there is a lack of regulation and management over that area entirely, I believe it's 40%. Yes, I believe that 40% of people of color who use their water, that people of color who use privately owned well water, they are 40% more likely to have contaminating water sources, and it is 40% more likely for their drinking water to violate safe drinking water standards. So that is an issue as well that I think should be addressed. And I think having more regulations in this area overlooking water wells, water ground pumping systems, I think that could significantly reduce the amount of contaminated water, as well as help save on water and make it more sustainable rather than just taking whatever we need, however much we want at all times possible. And I think a way to do this would to be enforce mandated GSAs. A GSA is a groundwater sustainability agency. California already does have some, but from what I have read, it seems that they only have GSAs at high priority areas, and this is just like the ones that are at risk of just being depleted entirely. And I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should have GSAs at not every single water source, but every single main water source that supplies a significant amount of water to like a city, a town, a population. I think they should have mandated GSAs, not just the ones that are in danger of being empty. The second proposal that I have is stricter water conservation policies. This one's pretty simple. I think that we can just minimize our use of water. I think we can do this by I think we have done it before by regulating when you can and cannot water your grass, just simple stuff like that. And also maybe taxing higher companies that have a higher usage of water. I think we can just put a higher cost on the water they use to try and minimize it of them abusing that a little too much, or maybe just overdoing it. I think that would be a great way to just lower the use of water. Additionally, I think we can implement some sort of law that can say when you can buy certain things that are very water excessive, maybe the low flush toilet things that use less water when you flush them, or low water usage washing machines, or low water usage dishwashers. I think utilizing stuff like that would really reduce the amount of water that we use in households, and maybe just put a higher tax or cost on water for big corporations that use a lot of water. I think that could really help. And the third proposal that I have would to be invest in sustainable water resources. So by this, I read about Santa Monica. It's a city in California, and I think San Jose should really kind of follow their influence. So Santa Monica had actually reduced their water usage by 20%, and they did this by investing in, I think it was called Sustainable Water Project, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But what they did is they focused on recycling water, but they recycled stormwater, they recycled municipal wastewater, and then they also recycled, I think, agricultural and urban runoff water. And to do this, they created a structure that they harvested the water, and then they filtered that water, they cleaned it, made it nice and fresh and drinkable, and then they would just transport it to wherever it needed. And I think this would be an amazing idea for San Jose to implement, because not only would it save us on transportation prices and greenhouse gas emissions from getting that transported water from the snowpacks in the local mountain ranges, but it would also reduce the amount of water that we're pulling from the delta. It would reduce the amount of water that we're pulling from the underground sources, and it would really just focus on local water that we're just reusing over and over. So we wouldn't be putting any more stress on our environment, we wouldn't be putting any more stress on the water sources that are already running very, very low, and overall it would create a more sustainable future for not only our generation but future generations, so they can keep reusing the water and just never have to worry about, well, they would have to worry about harming the planet, but not to the extent that we are. And I think that would really, really help the water scarcity problem. And overall, if we were to implement these, I think not only would human rights, we would have more access to drinkable water, it would be sanitary, clean, and safe, so it wouldn't be no longer infringing on human rights, but it would also be more balanced with our ecosystems. It wouldn't be harming our environment to the extent that it already is. So I think if we were to implement implementing stricter groundwater regulations, stricter water conservation policies, as well as investing in sustainable resources for water supplying, I think that we could solve our issue. I think that we could really reduce not only our water usage, but I think we could reduce our reliance on very finite sources that we are already depleting. And yes, thank you for listening.